I want to invite some of the panelists that I have here. I want to start with Ashwini Nityanandanam. Ashwini, can I have you here? Ashwini is head of marketing at Prestige Group. She was previously country manager at Monash University. And one very interesting thing which I saw was that she did a course recently around creativity, reinvention, and self-development, which was very interesting. Glad to have you here, Ashwini. I want to call Shelly Arora. Shelly is Global Head Brand and Social Media Marketing at Leica. Welcome, Shelly. Thank you for joining us. She's previously been a director with Brainstorm Entertainment and marketing head at Apple. Thank you for joining us, Shelly. We have Krupesh Bhatt. Krupesh, can we have you here? Krupesh is founder at legaldesk.com. Hi, Krupesh. Krupesh earlier was managing partner at Neotix Media. Pleasure to have you, Krupesh. And Lawrence, can we have you back on stage? Lawrence is account executive at Datorama, and previously he was running media sales at a lot of organizations. Pleasure to have you. My name is Mihir. I'm a co-founder at Mirum India, and I'll be conducting the panel for everybody. And hopefully we are going to have some great conversations. This is usually the part of the event which everybody looks forward to because it's very entertaining. Glad to have you, everybody. Thank you for taking the time out. I want to start by asking this kind of broad question. We saw some examples throughout the evening today. I'll start with you, Ashwini. How do you look at creativity and data? What do you think is more important in marketing today?
Thank you. Happy to be a part of this panel. Just to give a quick introduction, people who are in Bangalore would have heard of Prestige Group. We are one of the leading real estate developers in South India. But I particularly head Forum, which is the retail wing of Prestige Group. I had marketing for that. The reason why I'm telling you this is because we have about 8 malls across the country, and we are in tier 1 and tier 2 cities. So basically data collection itself is sort of becomes a challenge for us. So we sort of collecting the data from the consumer, we get about 6 crore footfalls in a year. And that's a lot. And we also have a lot of privacy issues. People don't want to share much data with us. And there are multiple, even tenants don't want to share data with us. So ultimately, we are looking at, okay, what is it? How can we hyper-personalize? How can we get to the consumers, at a grassroots level, understand what they want, what is their consumer behavior? For that, we either need the data from the tenants or from the consumer itself. But in India, tenants don't really share the data. So for us, the starting point is data, right? Gone are the days of ATL and BTL. Today we are looking at, how can we get to the consumer, and probably just in a touch of a button, right? So for us, first is data, and then we want to look at creativity.
Great, very interesting. Shelly, what is your take on this question?
Thank you. Happy to be a part of this forum. Just to introduce quickly to the audience. So I'm from Leica Digital. We are the digital arm for Leica Mobile, and we are. When I joined this company, I was just so surprised with the mammoth size organization this is. We have got operations in 23 countries, and we have got about 15 brands. So Leica Mobile is the largest. So I take care of social media marketing for the brands. So coming from that, and we are a MVNO, so that's a mobile virtual network operator, like Airtel, they're MNO, we are MVNO. So coming from that perspective, data becomes extremely important because we have a huge database of customers, and be able to reach out to them with personalized communication, be able to increase the average revenue per user. The age on network, we have to run extremely targeted campaigns. So yes, data becomes extremely important. Yes, we do personalize the communication and creative because it has to be visual. You cannot be too text heavy. So right. Creative is equally important, but yes, it starts from data.
Okay, that's very interesting. There's a correspondence in views, I see. Thank you. Krupesh, what about you? What is your opinion on this?
Good evening, everyone. A quick background about myself. I run a startup called Legal Desk. It's a contract automation and the It's primarily for India, where we'll help the companies draft contracts, negotiate, and electronically execute the contracts. We are also working on launching this on Salesforce, the platform that's coming up in a few months. For me, the data is kind of a building block on which you'll have many options to exercise your creativity and then build many things. So it always prioritizes on data, because if you have enough data, then you can really play with it. Whether it's optimizing your conversion rate, optimization, improving your the campaigns, marketing campaigns, email campaigns, any of that. So I mean, it's both are equally important. But if you if you ask me to prioritize, it's data is what I go with.
Okay, very interesting. Wise men and women think alike, looks like. Lawrence, you get to talk to so many different customers. What do you think is this something you see as a trend across customers?
Yeah, definitely. Can you hear me? So turn this up. So I think that the question is a personal point of view. Is I think you need to be asking yourself, what is the objective? I think are we looking at shifting someone's perception of our brand, or are we looking at trying to get someone to convert? If we're erring on the conversion side of things, then I think the needle of where data is important is at 99%, 100. And particularly if I was running performance marketing and the things that you can see in Datarama, where we can pull in hundreds of your creatives into the platform, view which ones performed well, and other companies out there, not specifically what Datarama does, but particularly around dynamic creative optimization. So hyper local targeting. If we're trying to get someone to download an app, if we're trying to get someone to make a conversion, then I think it's super important. But I think erring on more towards, if I think myself, what brands what brands have changed from my opinions recently, or I remember and stick in my head. I think there's still a lot of the madmen left to come up with those campaigns. I think executions like Out of Home, for example, I think are fantastic for that. Obviously I come from the UK, London. You get out the tubes. The tube wrappers are incredible. If anyone's been to London before and seen one of the tubes completely wrapped in Burberry, for example. So that necessarily is not the most data-driven thing in the world, but it's really impactful and it can change your opinion of a brand.
Awesome, that's a great example, and I want to actually dig down upon some of these examples. So we keep hearing about data being the new oil, right? Krupesh, if I can ask you, any examples that come to your mind about how people have leveraged this data effectively for marketing, or any thoughts about how you think they could be leveraged?
So one of the things that we do is that segregation of data and segmentation of data, right? So we have millions of the records. Then how do you make sense out of data? Whether you want to just to give an example, we have the email subscribers. So you could just the blast email campaign and hope that you achieve probably maybe some 10-15% open rate, and if you do well, you can really get it much better than that. But then what next? Is the message really relevant to that audience? People may have signed up for a different purpose. Maybe they're just looking for some industry news, or maybe someone who's really interested but is from a different industry vertical, whether it's the financial industry or the insurance vertical or something different. So I think one of the key things that you should do is that segregate the data and then build different campaigns for different either industry verticals or demographics, or depending on the type of the user, right? Then you could really frame your message to your audience to a level where your marketing messages are really well targeted. Then you could use a lot of the marketing technology tools and the tracking analytics, a lot of things. So that's what we want to go over.
Okay. Interesting. Shelly, any point of view on this one?
Thank you. Yes, so yes, data is the new oil, and yes, for marketers, we would just want more and more of data to be able to save our marketing bucks. I would share some examples from the campaigns that we are running. As I said, that we are running campaigns across 23 countries. and across various channels, Google Ads, social, programmatic, native. So we got this insight. We were running a campaign in Australia, and we realized that about 80% of our conversion was coming from one particular university area in south of Australia, and to optimize the campaign, we started spending more money there. So that really helped us bring down our CPA, of course, increase conversions, and that was brilliant. So yes, we kind of do geo targeting segment, interest based segmenting. So the more the data helps us optimize our campaign better. So that was from Australia. From UK again, we got similar insights that one particular area. So we were running. We have tied up with West Ham. We are the sponsors for West Ham, and we keep running a lot of engagement campaign with them on social channels. And we realized that we were getting a lot of response from London. So we started spending most of our marketing dollars in London to be able to optimize the campaign, and we got great response. Again, helped us. The engagement was like it doubled and helped us save our marketing money rather than going across the UK. So yes, so that's how we kind of optimize our campaigns and get better response.
Nice. That's very interesting. In fact, one of the things that you mentioned, I want to ask Ashwini specifically on that point. Sherry mentioned about multi-channel. So, how do you, for example, at Forum, keep track of consumers who leave touch points with you across so many different channels, right? Including, in your case, physical spaces that they're coming to. How do you manage something like that?
So basically, 60% of the customers who come to our malls are repeat customers. Even though if you see that, like you said, that one of the key touch points is the on-ground presence. Right. But however, they want the communication to come through a social media channel or an emailer or say a push notification. So it actually becomes quite challenging for us, to really keep track of that, unless there is a unique user identification number that we can track them with, maybe a phone number or an email address. So that sort of becomes a bit challenging, but we are trying to find methods and ways to understand our consumer better. Maybe like I've heard that, there are malls in Malaysia where when you go to the parking lot, the boom barrier just opens up, because it identifies your car number plate, and then it says, okay, welcome, Mihir or Ashwini. So that is the kind of data that we want to understand as well. So it does become challenging, but there is a lot of technology that we might have to invest in, which also requires a lot of capex, going back to the budgets. So we have to collect the data on ground as well as, online.
Right, that's very interesting. And actually, Shelly, in your context, even the platforms would differ market to market, right? Like the platforms that are prevalent in a UK might be different from what's prevalent in a Malaysia or whichever, so many markets that you're present in. How do you manage that complexity? Is there a way to manage that complexity?
Yeah, so what we do, Mir, is that when we start a campaign, obviously the choice is always the search campaign, because that starts getting us quick conversions and is the cheapest in terms of ROI. So that's a no-brainer. And then depending on the potential of a market and the budgets available for that market, we kind of reach out to newer channels. A native, again, we know performs well and gets us good response. So we start with the channels which we are sure will kind of start giving yields. And yes, it varies. So for a smaller market like let's say Macedonia or a Tunisia, I might be little conservative in my choice of channels and might just stick to maybe Google Ads over there. So it depends. But again, social is very big in Macedonia. We're surprised with the kind of response we get on social channels in a small market like Macedonia. One page like campaign gets me like 1,000 likes, which is like amazing, which is like a huge challenge in other markets. So it has been a great learning over here. Cultural differences. The way a global campaign, the customer response to a global campaign is of course very different, but we localize the campaign because we have local teams and all our content is vernacular, all the local keywords are used in the content. So we try to customize our campaigns for a local market. And the choice of channel again depends on the potential that we're seeking from a market. So we've got P1, P2, P3 markets, and basis that we kind of decide our investments.
Right. So it's a market specific strategy for every single market. There's no one size fits all.
No.
Right. In an organization, sales teams, marketing teams, and so on. What's the trend? Is everything still in silos? Do you see a consolidation happening by and large? What's the kind of visibility you have on that?
So I think one of the biggest challenges, I think, speaking about earlier as well with the gentleman over there, is around people and getting people in the room together to make decisions, but also not kind of biting off more than you can chew as well in terms of implementing, or in terms of getting these technologies into businesses. So obviously our biggest selling point, as you've seen from the screen, is like all the data connections, all pre-built, ready for you. However, if you try to use all 112 at once, you'd still get into trouble and problems. And sometimes you can take people from almost having no visibility to then them wanting to have everything. And then when you actually really dig deep into, what is the part of the business that's actually going to give, a short-term win and get everyone comfortable on the platform without scaring everyone off, for example. So, in your example, with Leica, all these different markets, would we try and roll out Data Farmer across every market? Probably not. What I usually say to clients is, tell us everything that you want, but what is the most important? What are those top 5 or 10 key channels that you spend on? Because you're going to get the most ROI from integrating them first. And what's your P1 markets, for example? Once we've tested it there, then we can roll it out. Otherwise, it becomes bigger than Ben-Hur, and it's just a bit of a, not only too much, trying to do too much at once, but also then coming back to the people thing, is we try to rope in too many departments. And then that can be difficult as well, just because you have, multiple stakeholders. Everyone can look at the same chart and come back with different, opinions on how that should look, or what kind of, different ways of visualizing it. So often it's best to kind of keep these projects, small enough so that they can be impactful, but not too large, so that, in a year's time, you're still figuring out which stakeholder, is actually managing the project.
Right. So this reminds me, of that saying, how do you eat that frog? One bite at a time.
Yeah.
That's what it reminds me of. Interesting. Krupesh, what is your take on this? You are building an organization. How do you tackle this problem from scratch?
I have a kind of a different background. I worked in a large enterprise for close to 15 years, and now I run a startup with 100 plus employee organization. So I've seen the both ends. So to me, it's more of a the cultural issue. Sharing data and then monetizing the data. Basically, you say data is oil and data is money and data is whatnot, right? But then, if it is really money, are you really earning something out of the money? Whether it's data is earning more revenue out of it. I think data tends to stay in silos unless you have an organizational culture to automate the data sharing, and then share the data across all the organizations, right? So we have product, and then you have marketing, and then you have sales, and then customer success, and then customer service, all of it. So the data comes from different sources and resides at different sources. As in many instances, it doesn't move across unless you make serious efforts to democratize the data. So in a large organization, typically it's extremely difficult to make the data the sharing possible. So fortunately for us now, since we are a slightly smaller organization, we have shifted where we have made sure that the decisions happen by sharing data. So the analytics, the market analytics data is shared with the product teams, so they can optimize the product. It's a technology product for us. So including the Google Analytics data and data collected from marketing campaigns and AdWords, all of it is shared, and then the first thing it goes to the place is the product. So we continuously improve the product. And then the sales organization is also comes up with their the data, and that we typically use to improve the conversion rates, right? Whether are we spending marketing dollars on the sources that convert well. So we have kind of stopped spending money on Facebook, the campaign, and then also LinkedIn, because there is no ROI. Whereas we figured that the SEM and the SEO do the really well. So considering that we have put significant efforts on building our marketing and digital marketing campaigns, so that is basically it's eventually we'll get together, all teams will discuss and sit across in a single table. So it's for me, it's, I think if you build that culture from day one, it'll be much easier.
Very interesting. So what seems like a technical problem has a cultural solution. That's a very interesting take. So now that I have a kind of captive audience here, I want to do some market research for myself. So I want to ask each of you, Ashwini, starting with you, what do you see is the future of the agency business? We see a lot of organizations building in-house skills for marketing and creative and so on and so forth. Do you see that trend continuing? And if so, then what's the future for agencies? For me, essentially.
So basically, I think there is a good future for the agencies. But having said that, we would like to develop our own in-house resource, simply because the team understands the business well. Ultimately, it is about the return on investment, and for us, it is about driving the gross turnover and the income of the mall. So even though the agency can give you insights into how to do something really well, possibly in social media marketing, and that this is trending or this is viral and this is the best way to do a campaign for a particular event, it is important for us to understand the business side of things. So I think it is important, to have an in-house team, but also take the support of the agency.
Interesting. Shelly, what's your opinion on this?
So I would agree. I would agree with you that going forward. I mean, even today we are trying to kind of build competencies in house.
Right.
But having said that, you would not want to also build a very heavy organization. So functions that you can outsource. For example, content is king, but because we have to create a lot of content for a lot of markets. There are a lot of freelancers who write brilliant content localized for a market. So something like that, we kind of tend to, we're exploring grounds.
Right.
Everything is in-house at the moment. But things that we can outsource, which is, we would still be continuing with that. But marketing dollars investment in terms of running the social media campaigns, paid campaigns, any form, any channel, certainly has to be in-house. Yes, we can hire an expert agency to give us insights, or perhaps just get a person in-house to give us those insights, because a lot of insights also come from the local teams as well. So the priority would still be to build competencies in-house rather than outsource it.
Right, interesting. So what the trend I'm seeing is that there is a drive to build in-house capabilities, but let's say there is a very specialized skill. Maybe that is exactly the kind of stuff that still goes outside. Interesting. Vish, what is your take on this, Bhupesh?
I think see, if you see a lot of innovation happening by the smaller companies and especially startups. So my take is that if the innovation were to happen in startups compared to larger organization, then the equivalent of that in the marketing field is the marketing agencies, right? Probably because that's your bread and butter. On a day-to-day basis, you will look for the new trends and technologies and the innovation happening. Also, the marketing agencies tend to have the luxury of seeing the best practices and worst practices, and also have access to various kinds of data and the tools and technologies, all of it. Basically, that's what they do on a daily basis. But having said that, I definitely agree with Shelly. So you want to build that expertise in-house, but most of the times you don't have that luxury to build that. And then people, especially in large organization, the that knowledge capital that you build, you may not be able to retain over time, because people come and go, and then most of the things is it's not really. I mean, especially in this field of marketing, you can't really document and then transfer that knowledge, right? So I mean, typically, I mean, it's probably the good practice to have a marketing agency or a consultant kind of help you across, but the core skills would still be with the organization.
Interesting. Lawrence, you got my back on this one?
To an extent. I used to sell to media agencies, and I still do. So I think it's the business model that just needs changing. I think the technology is kind of outstripped, unfortunately, the way that, especially in a lot of the bigger agencies. So kind of got your back covered there. I know you do have larger overlords, so I'll be careful of what I say. But the business model is particularly within media buying agencies of them kind of holding on to all the keys because they had the relationships with the publishers. We just don't live in that world anymore. Like we can go on to Google, we can sign up to the trade desk, an independent trade desk, whoever it might be, and we can buy media, and we know the prices. It's not a black box anymore. However, there's really specific skills contained with those agencies, and it's the business model that needs to, I think, change from maybe on margins or what you spend with them in media to on consulting, which I think does come back to where I think Mirum is at the forefront of implementing things like Datarama, and not just being this big behemoth who just does one thing really, really well, because that's not what clients want anymore, because the technology landscape is so different. Actually it's kind of, I think, going back full circle to having agencies that understand creative, because the creative is impacted by the channels and the reports and the data. So if you just have people who sit there all day doing media buying every single day, they're not seeing the full picture, and they're only focused on potentially a margin or a metric that isn't important to the client, and isn't potentially important to the outcome of the campaign or the business metric. So yeah, I think changing to more being flexible, more consulting, and obviously getting involved in the Salesforce products, right?
Great. Thank you so much, Lawrence. Thank you, everybody. I think I want to now move to a little bit of a more fun round, what we call a rapid fire round. So very simple rules of the rapid fire round. Everybody gets 5 questions, and you have to answer as quickly as you can, whatever is the first thing that comes to your mind. Not too much time to think. Yeah, exactly. That's why it's fun. Ashwini, we'll start with you. Okay, easy question up front. Where would you rather shop, Amazon or Flipkart?
None. I would
Okay.
shop in a mall. In forum malls.
Okay, see, you're good at this. This is exactly what I thought you would say. Okay. Working in a co-working space, working in an office, or working from home?
Co-working space. I think there are a lot of new ideas that are coming up in a co-working space nowadays, although we work out of an office.
Okay, thank you. Kids on digital media usage, using more and more digital media. Scary or exciting?
Scary to a large extent, but I think the knowledge that they are gaining out of it is quite intense. I mean, a 4-year-old, just knows how to use the mobile in and out. Probably even I don't know how much my phone can do.
Okay. A full-length virtual reality movie by 2022. Do you think it's possible or not?
Yes, why not? Definitely.
And one marketing prediction for the year 2020.
I think there's a lot of talk on data as the new oil, and I think a lot of people have disagreed also. You must have read in the recent news. I wanted to speak about a term called omotenashi, which is basically, I'm sure if anybody is following the Tokyo Olympics 2020, you would have heard it. It's about a Japanese hospitality term where you know what the customer wants before the customer knows it. So I think that is where we are heading towards.
Amazing. That is just brilliant. Great. Shelly, over to you. Netflix, Hotstar, or Amazon Prime?
Netflix, any day.
Okay, favorite show? That's part of the first question only. Any favorite show?
So many. I love Narcos and Sacred Games. Many.
Okay. 5G. Will it change the world or make people even bigger content consumers?
Depends on how it gets implemented. 4G itself is so patchy,
Right.
but I guess yes, of course, it will change. It will help the consumer use data more effectively, um, and hence change the way we communicate. Much more faster, much more real time.
Right.
So yes,
Okay, interesting. 3D printed food, reality or myth?
reality.
Reality. Okay. Aadhaar, digital espionage or genuine inclusion?
That's a tricky one. um, well, I would say the intent was really nice, genuine, but I think the way they executed, and now because they were not too sure, the objective, and now they've made it non-mandatory. I think it was a complete a waste of a project. So, but I guess very promising. When it started, I mean, it did make life very easy for us as a consumer to use a single identity anywhere. So
Right.
yes, it did make a difference. But again, the government itself is so quite, not sure about what they
Right.
want to do with that data and whether they want to continue that as an identity for an individual.
Right.
So yeah, sad state of affairs there.
Interesting. One marketing prediction for the year 2020?
I would say we've been talking a lot about artificial intelligence. So many companies having their own artificial intelligence. We as marketers, we've not really been able to use it really to the optimum level to be able to kind of really predict what the consumer wants and be able to offer that. I think that would be very much doable by 2020. We would be effectively using that for running campaigns. Yeah.
Very interesting. I'll move on to Krupesh.
Should I ask me the Aadhaar question, because our entire business was built on Aadhaar, and then we had to reinvent ourselves.
Okay. Aadhaar, digital espionage or genuine inclusion? This is cheating,
Glad I
but
have
it's fine.
I have, I have a choice now. See, the Aadhaar was really, there's a genuine the effort, and it was really revolutionizing the data sharing aspects of it. At one point in time, we have brought down the entire onboarding cost for typical banks and then FMCG companies from like 5-6 days to about 30 seconds, maximum 45 seconds, where identification and then authentication through the government database. You would authenticate through your OTP or a biometric impression. So you could open your bank accounts, or you could open, take a loan. All of it is to take. There used to be many of our clients used to do like a 30 minutes loan, where end to end, including the application and then all the way contract execution. Now it's like the punishing the punishing one person. I mean, the entire class, just because one person made a, some mischief in the class. So that's what happened. Basically, the Aadhaar was going in the right direction, and then suddenly, there is some the noise about Aadhaar. It could be because of some kind of the lobby that could have happened, but the entire thing is ruined. Right now, it's extremely difficult for Aadhaar to come back. It's because of all these constraints and the new privacy laws being the framed, and then the Supreme Court itself watching closely. So Aadhaar is going through a tough time. However, there are a lot of other things coming in place of Aadhaar, and other identity proofs, and then data sharing. There's something called Sehmati, where you can share your the personal and the financial information with anyone with your consent, right? The consent based architecture is being formed. I think we are slightly moving in a different direction, but it's still it's going to be much better. So there's going to be there is no single Aadhaar kind of a system, but there are going to be like 3-4 different systems that you use. It's governed by different regulatory bodies. So for the corporates and organizations, it's going to be the difficult journey in providing unified interface in terms of identification. So probably will take a few years to consolidate.
Okay.
Sorry, it was a
Great.
long answer.
No, I can see that you're very passionate about the topic. So that was a deep question. I was starting with simpler ones. So no, that's fine. Ola or Uber? Simple one.
So Ola is a fan of Uber, but then I had a bad experience. because at that point in time, there's the Uber didn't have an option to book two cabs. We were running, we were in London vacationing, and we had to book a cab, but we were carrying only one mobile phone with but we had like 6 people. So at that point in time, the Uber didn't allow us to make another booking. So we had to miss the flight, and then
Oh
we had to
boy.
rebook. I mean, it's really, it's not Uber's fault. Later they fixed it, but just it's more of a
Right.
inconvenience. One time we switched to Ola.
Okay.
It's good so far.
Okay. Ebooks or hard copies?
Podcasts.
Okay, that's nice. Facial recognition, is it the next generation of convenience or is it the beginnings of some dystopia?
We do work on facial recognition technology. As we speak, we have a launch tomorrow for facial recognition based digital KYC product. We have a launch at our office. Our current IT Minister of Karnataka is doing the launch. So it's a reality. If you compare to other countries, especially in China, they have gone to an extent where the face of an animal is itself is recognized. So let's say a farmer can take a loan against the livestock, right? So maybe the pig or some other animal. So they will using your they'll take a photograph, and then to basically to avoid, I mean, to prevent the fraud. So the animal is recognized by a face, so you can't go and then take another loan against the same animal. So that is a kind of the progress they have made. But in India, we are still struggling with implementing something as basic as Aadhaar, which had all the elements of. I mean, if Aadhaar was were to be in place, the facial recognition wouldn't have been needed. Now we do need it, but yeah, basically, I mean, it's going to happen. We have an option where the liveness of the photo, I mean, basically through video conferencing, if you show an ID of your ID, and then you're recording a video, you can match the photo in the ID with the actual face, and that's how we are going to authenticate the user. So that's basically the replacement of equivalent of Aadhaar that we are kind of reinventing.
Nice. This is the first future of digital marketing where a livestock use case was used. So that's a first. One marketing prediction for the year 2020.
I think AI is every marketing product, whether it's marketing, sales, or any product is going to have AI built in. So AI is not it's going to be a differentiator for anyone. It's going to be it's a commodity. So everyone, each product is going to have built-in AI.
Okay, very interesting. Lawrence, Skype or face-to-face meetings?
Face to face.
Okay.
Although 5 in 5 days in 5 cities in India is difficult.
So Lawrence was in Pune like 4 hours back.
Yeah.
The stocks of which of these companies would you buy? Tesla, Uber, or Apple?
Apple.
Okay. Technology improves productivity at the workplace. Yes or no?
Yes. My long side is because I think we're at a point where we have too many options of how to talk to people. WhatsApps, emails, etc. I don't know. There needs to be some way of bringing it all together. Datarama for your messaging. I'm sure actually someone's created that. I need it basically.
That's very interesting. Artificial intelligence, will it bring an end to the human race?
Could do. I like a lot of Terminator movies, so.
Okay. One marketing prediction for the year 2020?
I'm looking forward to. So I think I briefly touched on our co-founder, the lady Katrin, who came from Havas. She's been pretty much the moment we got acquired, plucked out of Datarama, and been running the CDP project for Salesforce. So maybe a little bit late to the party, but it's a stitch up together of a few different things. I know Datarama is one of them, so I'm really looking forward to seeing the probably post Dreamforce, the release of the CDP from Salesforce, and the impact that will have. Maybe I'll get to sell it. I don't know.
Very interesting. Thank you so much. Thank you everybody for that rapid fire. I think everybody did phenomenally well. We don't have hampers, but we have something we think is a little bit more interesting. So what we do is we've planted some trees on each of your behalf.
Wow, that's fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you, Shelly.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pritesh. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Cheers. Thanks very much. Cheers.
Thank you everybody for your time. I want to thank our guests for spending their time with us.